Hello, Julie.
Hello, Deborah. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad
Good.
we finally were able to connect.
I know. I'm so glad that we're both here. We're both on screen now.
Yes, very good.
I
So,
um I wanted to chat to you today about your journey, your book, your message. And I think one thing that really sort of connected me with you is that we both have this purpose that we don't want people to feel alone. And I think from reading your story, and from my own personal experience, I think a lot of us do actually feel alone with our experiences, and we feel like we're the only ones that do experience that. So, yeah, I think, would you like to get started by telling us a little bit about your story, your book, what that's all about?
sure. And I absolutely love it. And I think you hit it right on the head there when you said, like, the thing that brings us together is that we have a story that needs
Mm.
shared. And absolutely. So people don't feel alone because absolutely I felt alone in my story. So, my story is that I was sexually abused as a child by my father. And um, I just kind of ended out just having to go through life. People found out and nothing happened. Um, then I was left to face the situation alone, obviously as a child with nobody knowing, but then when people knew, still nothing changed. And so I just thought, okay, well, then that's just life. That's just what you do. You just keep going on and you still have relationships with your parents and your family. Um, and I did my best without knowing everything to continue the relationship and felt like by me knowing and having some conversations with my children about, like good touch, bad touch, and all this, that we had done enough. But as it turns out, it wasn't enough. And so then my dad um, harmed my niece. And at that point, I was just like, okay, what just happened? Because I thought we talked about this. I thought that we like all knew that this was harmful and that you hurt me and my sisters and that you were going to figure yourself out and you would never do this again. But it did happen again. And since that happened, I really did a deep dive on my whole journey of being like, okay, like I allowed this person in my life and these people, my parents in my life, and I really shouldn't have. And then realizing the impact that doing that my whole life, because I'm 54 now, and this has happened in the last couple of years. So at 53, my world got rocked because I thought I was okay. And I thought we as a family were okay. Like, I know that my parents had difficult childhoods, and I knew they brought that to being parents. And I just always thought they're doing their best
Mm.
and they've done real harm, but they're sorry. They've apologized and they've said they're never going to do anything like that again and that that's not okay. But then they did. But living with all of that, what it did for me was it set me up to feel comfortable around people who are predators. So all of my intimate relationships, well, I shouldn't say all of them because I did marry a man who was a good person. But unfortunately, we weren't quite a match. But we did serve a purpose in each other's life. So my actual marriage was okay. And I am, so I don't want to say that if anyone listens to this, he's a good person, but we just weren't a match for the long run. But before that, and then after that, I ended out in some really um, just unsafe relationships
Yeah.
where I just continued the cycle of abuse, not quite as strong, but still it wasn't a healthy place.
Yeah.
So, with this happening with my parents and my family, I realized, okay, I have to walk away from them now. Like, I can't, I have to support my niece, I have to support myself. And so I walked away and I found Perry Power and I wrote my book and I was like, this is liberating to say out loud these things. And then every now and then somebody will come up to you and say, like, hey, I have a story too. And you're
Mm.
like, wow, and it's okay to share your story and you're not alone. And that
Yeah.
was the biggest thing about finding Perry and these powerful books was that I realized, holy crap, I'm not alone. I mean, I felt so alone, especially it being my father. I felt so alone. Like nobody's going to understand. Like, why would you even go back? Why would you talk to them? Why would you? So afraid, right, of what people would say. And so, yeah, that's why I wrote my book is to let people know you're not alone. As terrifying as that is, you are not alone. And so finding other people to connect with and share is super empowering. And so that's why I wrote my book. And I try to connect with people to help them realize that. And kind of like we're saying, your story is not my story. I mean, I have this trauma here, but you have as well an amazing story of power and triumph. And so I don't want to hog up our whole conversation here, but that's why I'm here. And that's why we know each other, those because we do
Yeah.
have these difficult stories, but we've come out of it stronger. And now we
Yeah.
want to pull other people out of their story and say, hey, it doesn't have to be a solo journey.
Yeah. And it's, I've heard a lot of people saying that they've had difficult situations growing up, whether it be abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence, just witnessing domestic violence, but that when they become adults, they are somehow drawn to the same kinds of people because without realizing it, there's a sense of comfort there. It feels familiar. And I
Yeah.
guess by you sharing your story, you're hopefully sort of interrupting that for some people and saying, look, this is not okay. You don't need to go down that path. And when you talk about your niece, was that the turning point for you that you perhaps that gave you the courage to actually take stock of what's happened and seeing that it's happening to somebody else? Was that a driving force for you to actually share your story?
Yes, it really was. Because I've always said, I have always said, like, I think from a very young age, I always said, I'm gonna write a book someday. I'm gonna write a book someday, right? But I was always like, but I have to wait until my parents pass because I don't want to embarrass them. I don't want to bring shame to our family.
Mm.
But when it happened, it was like a re-betrayal. And it was very painful. And it still is. Like I can't say that it's not because um now it's like we live with the fact that like we know what this is and
Mm.
somehow we dropped the ball because we believed what everybody told us, like it's going to be okay, you're going to be okay, and he said he'll never do it again. um but it's a re-betrayal. And so yeah, so was it the turning point for me to really share my story? Yeah, because I needed to heal like in a very
Mm.
deep way.
Yeah.
Like I was just at a loss. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what to do right now. Sorry. I don't, like you're always
No,
like, I
don't
got
be
it. Yeah.
sorry.
Um, but I really felt like I really did. I really felt like I was okay. And when it happened, yeah, you're angry, you're hurt, and you feel guilty. And um, so now going forward, I think it's important for people to realize like these people are out there hurting people. And our systems say it's okay. And so it's on us then, as the victims, as the families, to say, you're not a safe person. And we love you. Great. We love you, right? But you're not a safe person. And so we do have to report and we do have to do what we can do. But if the system doesn't do anything, we can still do something.
Yeah. And that
And
was so
yeah,
shocking when I read that in your story that people knew and nothing was done still. And I think, yourself and other people that are sharing their stories like this, that is what's going to make the change, because you're standing there and saying, I'm here and something needs to be done. And I imagine, I mean, as a child, you were doing everything that you could to protect yourself. You were in survival mode. You know, locked all of that away because you needed to cope and you needed to get on with your life. And it makes me so sad to hear you say that you felt guilty, because this is not on you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and as an adult, right, I can look back at it and be like, none of it was my fault. Absolutely none of it. Anything that I did to survive the situation, as a child
Yeah.
is not my fault. Like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I see the patterns though that it has had me run even into my adult life. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's where I go, okay, that stops. I'm not going to run those patterns anymore. When I feel in my gut that something's not right, I'm going to listen because my body knows. Before I know intellectually, my body knows and it goes, this is not a safe space. So let's go. And
Yeah.
it doesn't take any like aggressive or anything.
Yeah.
You just you just walk away peacefully because you're like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, this isn't good, so I'm just gonna go now. And you just go. And
And it takes
and
a lot, doesn't it? I think
it
I
does.
think make age and experience to get to that point of actually trusting that feeling, that gut feeling. And I know that you said that you were 53 before you shared your story.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's so brilliant that you're there and you're saying, I'm making this change. And, you know, like you say in your book, it's never too late to make a change
No,
or to go in a different direction. And I love that. And I think it's so empowering. And
thank you.
did you feel that when you decided, well, when you finished writing your book and you shared it, did you get that sense of empowerment that you're actually doing something and making a change?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. When I published my book and I went live and people are seeing my story out loud, yes, it's absolutely empowering because the things that I was afraid of didn't happen. People didn't come up to me and be like, oh, like that didn't happen. Instead, they're supportive and like, wow, you're really strong. Wow, I
Yeah.
didn't know that about you. Wow. And like I said, and then other people will say, I had something similar in my life.
Yeah.
And some people are ready to talk about it and some aren't. But again, the important part is that they know they're not alone and they see somebody else saying, hey, this is my story. This is my life.
Yeah.
And yes, it's very freeing because now I can let people know me for real. Like this, what you see on the outside is all a result of who I had to be to survive life. And I'm okay. Like I'm happy. I am. I know I cry once in a while because it's very um it's a very powerful emotion, of a little
Yeah.
bit of just sadness of loss. Um, but also a story of triumph because here I
Mhm.
am, I'm good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm really, really good. And that is
Yeah.
my whole thing. And I don't want people to wait till they're 53 either. I feel like, oh my gosh, if I could have seen how this was affecting me sooner, I could have addressed it sooner and I could have spoken up sooner. And you know what I mean? And I could have felt empowered
Yeah.
sooner. So I'm glad to be here now. But if I can help somebody else find this power and undo these negative patterns in their life sooner than later, that's it. Just, do you know what I mean? Like that's it. If I can do that, then I've taken my story and made it a tool for somebody else. So
And
yeah.
without a doubt, you were doing that, because I think the one thing that probably keeps a lot of people silent and unable to share their stories is the fear that we have of what are people going to say, what are people going to think, what repercussions are there going to be, and that fear makes us hang back and be like, no, I can't do this, I'm too scared. Whereas you've actually stepped into that fear, and despite those worries, you've still told your story, you've shared what's happened to you, and I'm sure you've had people reach out to you and contact you, and the reason that they've managed to do that is because you've inspired them to actually be able to say, this has happened to me.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I have. And
Amazing.
that, yeah, that's, and then that just gives you the fuel to just keep going, because
Yeah,
this is what we need
yeah,
in all of these different situations in our life. This is what we need: safe spaces to say it, and then be empowered to go ahead and share it with a broader audience, because
yeah,
the more people that just show up and say, hey, this happened, I'm still here and I'm okay. That's what people need to know. You will be okay. Let go of all
yeah,
the shame, let go of all the guilt, and just face it, say it. When you start saying whatever it is that you're carrying around with you, it is freeing. It is a weight lifted off of you, and you're just like, oh, I could breathe. Like,
yeah,
okay, I'm
yeah,
me. I'm really me, and I'm still okay, and I'm still here. And that's what
yeah,
people need to know. You're gonna be okay.
yeah.
You're gonna be
And
better than okay.
I really resonate with something you said when you were talking about, actually once you face something, those fears often don't actually come to life. And that's something that I think I've had to learn to realize and understand, is that I'm actually creating bigger fears by trying to avoid things, or I
Right.
have in the past when things have come up. I'm like, no, that's too scary. I'm just going to ignore that and just push it away and expect it to just, disappear and leave me alone. But in fact, what
Right.
it does is it just sits within you and it grows and it gets bigger and it doesn't go away. And I've found, like, since having my cancer diagnosis, I mean, I've spent years worrying about something like this, or imagining, how do people cope with something like this, and the thought of it was so scary. And when I was diagnosed, I've talked before about going through some therapeutic journaling, and it didn't take me long to realize that once I could actually say it out loud or write it down, it often wasn't as big and scary as I thought it was going to be. To be able to just release that, like you say, there is such a weight that's lifted, isn't there, when you're actually able to be set, right, here it is, this is it. And
Right.
I know for me, I had to actually practice saying the word in front of the mirror to myself, because I was like, I need to tell people I have cancer. And it's a word that so many of us are scared to say. It's like, that's why it's given the nickname of the big C, because
Right.
people fear the word. And I was like, I need to say this word. And especially for my children, I knew I had to tell them and say the word cancer and not be afraid to say it. But I mean, at first I was. So I used to have to practice in the mirror, and I would stand there
Wow.
talking to myself.
Yeah.
Felt like a bit of an idiot.
That
But it
alone
really
was probably
helped.
hard.
Yeah, but just getting used to saying the word and seeing myself say it, and I think it's definitely helped. It's really helped me to see things differently and to be able to approach things as well. And I think there's so many things in life that I've picked up, and I'm sure you're the same, that there's so many little tools and techniques that we can use that can really help us to acknowledge things and to face things. And one thing that I love about your book is that you include journaling prompts at the
Yes.
back, and that's something else that I think we both are quite passionate about, is journaling and writing down how we're feeling, what's going on for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, journaling is very powerful. And so for you also, though, with your journey being so different from mine, and your book is not out yet, but you're in the process,
Yeah,
right? So what would be like, for me, obviously, I want people to just feel safe to share their story. And for you, kind of what's your purpose? Like, what do you want people to Like, what's motivating you to write your book? Because you do have a fabulous story of how you overcame so much and it changed your
Yeah,
perspective.
I think I want to share how I've come to where I am at the moment. So um, I think the main, the key thing for me is to help people to realize about facing and acknowledging things, to build this self-awareness, because I think the more self-aware we are, the better our well-being is. And that's really important to me, is well-being, emotional, mental, psychological well-being. And I think if we can become aware and learn to live with more awareness, that's essentially what is going to help us to be happier and more content. And it's not easy, it's definitely not easy, but it's something that I feel I've had to learn the hard way, and I've spent so many years trying to avoid things or push them down, that it's not until I started facing things and, you know, going through that uncomfortable stage of actually putting something in front of me and acknowledging it and accepting it, that actually it's really helping me. And I think there's so many things in life that I want to cover in my book that we're often afraid to talk about, and that we're often afraid to share with other people, or to face or say out loud. But like you, I want to support people, and I want to encourage people to support each other as well, because it's such a huge thing, and it's been such change for me. The amount of support that I've felt, well, me and my family have felt since my diagnosis, and the people that are out there that genuinely care and want to help, and that feeling is just, it feels like you can just do anything if you've got that around you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Surrounding yourself with supportive people. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's so important, right? And
Mm.
what you're afraid of is, first of all, just the realization that you have cancer. That's
Mm.
terrifying, right?
Mm.
Um, I've had some small scares in my life with that, but then just to face it, right?
Mm.
And you're like, and how am I going to do this? And when you share, then these people show up and they're like, hey, we're here to champion you.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, wait a second. This is so like, it just feels good. Like you're not alone,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
yeah, so I'm so happy that you found a supportive group. But I think that's also really important for us, is that's what we find. We're afraid we're going to be alone and struggling.
Mm.
But when we actually start voicing our needs, people show up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I've noticed that since only over the last sort of couple of years that I've been able to share um, like personal experiences or thoughts and feelings, or parenting frustrations and things like that, being able to share them honestly with people, um, has actually given me such deeper connections with people. I was always afraid, I think, to be honest with people, and to, I don't know, a fear that I was going to say too much and people would not want to sort of know me or be my friend or be around me. And I've actually found the opposite. The more, real and honest and open I am, the more that other people, I guess, feel that they can be the same. And it just builds this lovely, deep connection with people. So it's really, really has changed me and my approach.
okay,
Definitely.
I love that.
Mm.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's basically, I always, whenever I'm talking to people about, I'm like, when you're being authentic and just being your true self, you're being
Yeah.
real, and people
Yeah.
can sense that, and then that
Yeah.
gives them permission to be real. And
Absolutely.
so instead of trying to be like, oh, look at my perfect life and my perfect this, my perfect, you're like, okay, I got some shit going on and I need to
Yeah.
talk to somebody, you know? And and it's like, okay, that's honest and it's real.
Yeah,
And that's what we need. We need to have real conversations
we
with real
do.
people. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you so much getting together with me so we can have this conversation. I am looking forward to your book one day. Um,
One day.
and hopefully then we can, maybe we'll have other conversations between
Yeah.
now and then. I
Yeah.
would love that, but we will definitely have another conversation when your book is
Yes.
officially out.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me and share your story.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Take care.
You too. Bye.